back with another Schoolhouse for our conversation, where today I'm going to be joined to have a very special conversation with a very special person, our crowned Queen of Colour, Sinead Lawless, who recently appeared on Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year. And she is going to chat to us all about the process this morning, and we are so excited that she's sharing this conversation with us. I know so many people are so excited for her and her success on the show. We've heard all of the reactions to her piece. We are so proud of her. We work with Sinead every week here in the Schoolhouse, and we're just constantly amazed at her use of colour, her ability to express herself through her art, and to share all that information during the classes that she does here. But more importantly today, we want to hear all about that experience with the Sky Art Portrait Artist of the Year. So let me see now, can I invite her along? Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. I have lots of questions, and if anyone has any questions they'd like me to ask Sinead, if you want to put it in the comments below, I'll be sure to try and squeeze it in. I know we've had a lot of requests already. You coming in, Sinead? There she is.
Hi.
Oh, look what's behind you.
I thought I'd bring it along.
Sure, why? I think you need to bring that everywhere now, Sinead.
Just carry it along with me.
Look, I just carrying this along, fine. Yeah, I mean, it's such a stunning piece in itself. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it's raining, so you might hear some screaming cats in a while, but I've left the door open, so hopefully they won't interrupt our session.
Don't worry. I'll never forget the live we did where my house alarm went off. And I left you there to just kind of ad-lib, so it's fine.
I'm really hoping the cat won't wail, but I'm like, it might happen. But the door's open, they should be able to manage. Well, so yeah.
I feel like it would sort of resemble wasn't it Badger the cat that
yes,
that Emma Fraud had brought?
Yeah.
So the bit of cat madness I feel will just be suitable for this chat. It's fine.
It's relevant. Yeah.
It's relevant, totally. So I mean, you have your portrait there in the back, your self-portrait in the background. I've seen that up close, and it's such, I mean, you could look at it many times and see a different thing each time. Do you want to start with that? Because I know for us, we watched you on Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year last week with the insane excitement, but I know for you that process started long before last week.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, the self-portrait was actually painted in lockdown, and yes, I entered it into Sky Arts, but it was painted because I wanted to get some stuff out of my system, and it really is my life story in a painting to this point. Well, to that point, because obviously there's a new point now, but so it's kind of like past, present, and future. And so the one in the center, the idea of me being right centered and facing straight on and with the chin up is like owning the present moment, kind of almost like a rebirth, and then leaving the past behind and moving forward with all the positive things that are in the future, and the strange light and all that kind of stuff, which people are asking about. Is I'm synesthetic, so I should have looked up the definition before I came on. Synesthesia is like when there's an intermingling of the senses. So like you might, some people might taste color, or like for me, when I see numbers or letters, I see colors, and sometimes I feel things. So it's hard to put in words, hence painting. But a lot of the stuff that you see in the painting is an attempt at a visual language to explain how I feel, if that makes sense.
I mean, I guess it's like a blend of your senses, that your senses sort of process things maybe slightly, differently.
But that's the interesting thing, because again, since the painting's been done and people ask questions about it, a lot of dialogue has opened up, and people have gone, oh, I have that too, or I see that too. And then on the other hand, people are also like, oh, I never had that. And I'm beginning to really see how diverse our brains are. We're all so different, it's wonderful.
Isn't that an amazing thing that art can do for people, where it can open the doors to having conversations about how
we work, and then being able to share or hear that someone else has the same experience helps validate it for you. So that's lovely. And I know you're doing a lot of work with that and neurodivergence and everything. So bravo for you on all of that. I think it's amazing the understanding you have around that and how open you are to talking about it and how you share your experiences. But I know today, because that is a whole other conversation.
Oh, listen, you know I'm the tangent queen, so I'm not going to do it.
I'm like, I'm going to keep you on this path. We are going to talk about the portrait artist. And
yes.
So going back, okay, when did you decide you were going to submit your self-portrait? Because it does come with a lot of, there's a lot of weight in that portrait to say, this is what I can do. This is how good I am. And I can come on to a film show and recreate my work in that setting as well. So
yeah.
When did you decide that you were going to submit your self-portrait?
It's a funny one, right? It's a funny one because like the show, when you watch the show, it's so intoxicating. And I know that anyone who's an artist who watches the show, their hand is nearly going at the same time because I think everyone empathizes with the artist on the show. So wanting to be on the show, I think it's just when you watch it, it's just natural to want to be there. And it's not even necessarily from a competitive perspective, but just I want to get in and do that. I want the experience of the celebrity sitter, of all the hustle and bustle of it, you know. But when I painted this painting, it was initially so personal. I was like, I don't want to submit this to the TV. Yeah. Again, the chances of getting on are so few, but I was like, but it was actually a friend of mine. It was Lynn, who also works as a artist. She's amazing. It was like, you've got to do it. She made me do it.
Yes.
She made me do it. Yeah. So.
And okay, so then once you submit your work, you just kind of wait. Is it a waiting game?
And they email you, they call you, and then they kind of do an interview on the phone just to kind of check in. I think they're kind of cross-referencing all the facts and times and all the rest of it, and they ask you a lot of questions. You have to fill out a lot of forms, and then you get the phone call to say you've been picked for the heats, and you're like, ah!
But you can't tell anyone.
You can't tell anyone. So like,
so you're screaming in your room.
Yes, because my heat was shot like at Easter time, and so I knew about it probably a month before that, so probably March or something. And it's like, yeah, you're so excited, and you can't. They tell you you're allowed to tell your nearest and dearest, but even then you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to run the risk of, you know,
to being
spreading. You kind of almost want to deny it yourself that it's not happening, so that you don't like burn out on the excitement before the thing actually happens.
And because we have to wait so long to actually see the show, there is that sort of adrenaline rush at the start, and then you just have to sit quietly and go, nothing just happened in my life.
Yes. And it's huge, and
it's massive.
And like then I had the whole thing of going over. I was like, okay, so I'm flying over from Ireland, and I was like, okay, like if I have to check a bag, even though I'm only going over for one day, because my paints won't be allowed onto the carry-on. And I'm like, and if I check the bag, what if they go missing? What if I don't have my colors? My colors are so important. And then you're like, oh, so I was like ringing producers. They were ringing me. I was like, please make sure I have the paints. And they were really good. And like, they're sponsored by Cass Arts. So they were able to work with me to make sure that I had what I needed. They were so nice.
Well, let's talk about your color, because you are the color queen. I mean, your expression through color is phenomenal, but I know that we've had so many people just comment on how you apply color, and I know Tyshawn Schoenberg said your colors were bonkers, and something about you being a good colorist. But you know, what colors did you use? Can you share that? What was that vibrant?
There was a whole bit with Ty that didn't make the edit, so I'd love to talk about that as well. But so the colors I used on the day, so anyone who wants their pen and paper,
we might have
the colors I used
have to post it afterwards. We'll post up the colors.
So I used Viridian, I used magenta, I used cadmium orange, and I used titanium white, and that was it. And so because I'm always playing, I love to play with a limited palette. Now when I say limited, I mean limited in the number of tubes I'm using, because there's nothing limited about the actual chroma of those colors. But Ty came over and he was very intrigued. He was like, you know, he was asking me a lot about the surface I was using. So on the day, the surface I used was a gesso panel, which is quite dry and soaks the paint into it. So we were talking about that. That might be interesting. And then also, yeah, he was like, what's going on with your colors? And I said, well, I'm using a limited palette. And he said, that's not limited, you know. So he immediately, and I was like, well, it is. I've only got 3 colors and I've got no yellow. And he was like, well, I suppose in that context, yes, because he thinks of limited as being muted or, you know, whatever. So he was like, how are you going to get your blue, your red, your yellow? And I'm like, oh, I've got it. I've got this figured out. I mean, but you see, I've painted many portraits with that palette before. So I knew that regardless of what the person in front of me showed up wearing or brought with them, or skin color, hair color, that those 3 colors would cover me, apart from maybe if they were wearing like something neon. But in that case, sheer, look, what are you going to do anyway? Yeah. So I had my primaries on standby. I had my red, yellow, blue on standby just in case I needed them, but I didn't need them. So
yeah. And did you know that, like, so you've no idea what it is going to turn up, and you have 4 hours on the day to complete that portrait? That's an amazing.
Yeah.
Under I imagine a very different environment. It's not like you're sitting in a studio with the sitter in front of you and you have 4 straight hours to handle this.
No, it's very hard because, well, first of all, the adrenaline is, my hand was shaking really bad for, I'd say, most of the day. And at one point, Kate came over to me and was commenting on my way of drawing. And I'm quite confident with my drawing and I'm quite quick with it. And my hand was hopping. So I had like a series of little marks and dots. And she was like, that's an interesting shorthand that you, and I'm like, this is adrenaline. This is not intentional, you know? So that was hard. But like, as well, you know, you have the 4 hours, but they do break it. So you do have breaks that, like, you there's a lunch break. The day is cut in half. So it runs over the whole day, but you do have the 4 hours to paint. That's it. And the sitter is there for 4 hours and that's it. And there are many, you know, things like people coming to talk to you, producers are coming to talk to you, camera people are coming in and zooming in on your work. The audience is talking to you sometimes, you know, everyone's just so excited. And you have an option to wear your headphones if you want to zone out. But I was so worried that that would be more disruptive for me, because then I'd be jumping every time, you know, Stephen Mangan would come over. I'd be like, what's happening? So I decided to leave them off, although I would have liked to have earplugs, but I left them in the hotel, so I couldn't.
Okay. I mean, and did you know, so I know you did an amazing body of work called Impermanence, and that's a very close crop of the portrait. Yes. Did you know you'd have, well, from looking at it, looks like it was a similar approach with Richard, that you took a very close up crop of his face and his form, which is very different to your self-portrait, which takes in so much more.
And you know, during the pandemic, Sky Arts, they ran Portrait Artist of the Week, where they had a sitter every Sunday live, and one of those was Clive Myrie, the BBC journalist, and I painted that, and actually that it came second that week, which was wonderful. And it was, I mean, pretty much the exact same crop that I did on Richard. And the thing about it was, I didn't plan to do that on the day. I kind of wanted to see what the sitter was going to give me, because if somebody came in and they had like all this big gown or something, sure, you couldn't not paint it. So, but I didn't have anything as big as what I would have done for my self-portrait, but I had some bigger boards with me. But when Richard sat down, despite the scripts being so appealing, it was his eyes. I was like, okay, I have to get them in. And I was like, how tight can I go and it still makes sense? And you're making these decisions really quickly. Normally, these are the kind of things that you would spend a couple of hours, even a couple of days, thinking about your composition and setup. And I was like, oh no. So I did a few thumbnails and thought to myself, if I do him at full size, his head's going to be tiny. I won't get the eyes in. So I just decided to crop. And I knew from doing that Clive Myrie painting, Portrait Artist of the Week, and my Impermanence series, that the crop works.
Yeah.
And once I did do a few where I was like practicing and I was like chopping people's heads off, just to, you have to be careful where that chop is. If it's too close to the hairline, it looks very odd, but it has to be kind of just here. So I had to redraw a couple of times to make sure the chop would happen at the right spot. Otherwise it just looks like I don't know, it just goes weird very quickly. And then another thing I decided was, when Richard sat in front of me, with, again, there was this sense of melancholy and worry from him, which was lovely to see in the edit, because I wasn't sure if that was going to line up, but it did. And I just saw when he looked back over his shoulder at me that there was a kind of a sense of worry and melancholy, but I wanted to put him in front of it, so it was behind him. And so the space behind him is intentionally there. which was again similar to the Clive Myrie device where I did that compositionally also, but not always. It depends on the sitter, you know.
Yeah, because I know they did mention that I know, wasn't it Kate who asked about your self-portrait being so complex,
Yes.
so having to distill and simplify your approach in
And I was
the time
worried
limit
about it. I mean, I was worried about it, but Kate, well, Kathleen in particular said that she was happy that I had made the choices I had made, because you know, I wasn't going to be able to deliver everything. And actually, just to note, there was a typo, I believe, because it said somewhere on the series that my self-portrait was done in 10 hours. It wasn't.
Okay.
That was obviously...
I was going to ask you about
no.
this. No. Okay.
Like, it took about 50,
okay.
50.
Okay.
But that could have been something that I made an accident in typing in the form. I don't know when that happened exactly, but there was... it was not 10 hours.
Well, thank you for owning that part, because for forever we'd be like, wow, 10 hours.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So like, yeah, when Kate and I can't think, Kathleen both said to me that they thought I made the right choice by showing them how I can paint in the day, as opposed to trying to recreate something and then just not being able to hit any of my marks whatsoever. It would have been,
Even so, your process on the day, you did tiny thumbnails, you then did, you decided on the crop, on your composition, and then transferred it with paint? Or I know that
I mean, so normally I would sit down and I would draw it very carefully or something like that, and then I would put an underpainting in where I'd get my main tones and shapes sorted out and go, is this working? Stand back, do I need to change anything? So that was the plan. So I initially started with a thumbnail, so I knew the crop. And then I started to draw, and my hand was shaking so much the drawing wasn't working out, because I was using a charcoal pencil, and I was like, okay, goodbye charcoal pencil, let's get into the paint. So it was almost like, let's try this, not working, let's try this, not working. And then I got in and I was like, okay, I'll do an underpainting. I put a green wash down because, well, first of all, the background behind Richard was green. So I was like, okay, that helps my eye to get in if I can see the green bouncing off the skin and things like that. So I'll put the green in. And I was like, okay, will I do the underpainting in green? Or, you know, thinking about this, and I was like, no, none of this is working. Just go straight in. Like, just, and if you look at those initial images, like I'm just going out like in all sorts of directions. So I turned into some kind of organic, I don't know, there was absolutely no thinking anymore. It was just purely doing.
And they they kind of said that in the edit, didn't they, where Sinead is turning the canvas upside down. There was lots of different
well, I do that anyway, and I do it with my students. So I mean, when you have the sitter sitting in front of you, but then you also have the option of having a photographic reference. And when you have a photographic reference there, you have the luxury of turning your canvas around, because you can turn the photo and you can see it more from an abstract perspective. And so when it comes to things like the details in around how the nose curves around, or the corners of the mouth, or the corners of the eyes, and things like that, where there's just that little bit of ambiguity with a live sitter where they might be moving slightly, in those moments you can turn it and get abstract without worrying about capturing likeness. It's a mechanism. It's a really good tool for taking yourself out of, this is a person, I don't want to insult them, I don't want to get caught up in likeness. So if you find yourself getting caught up in likeness, to turn the canvas just throws you off completely, and you're like, it's okay, now it's just the mechanics of paint
and just trusting what you see, as opposed to all of the other kind of emotional decisions that are in the background as well.
That's it.
When did you realize your sort of passion for color and your understanding for it? Because I think that's one of the things that really stands out when you look at your paintings. If you go up really close, I can see where those abstract paint marks are there, and then you stand back and this whole amazing composition just appears. I know we did one before on our website, was the crop of Ellie's eye. Yes, and it's just this beautiful arrangement of color. But then when you look at the whole piece, it's Ellie's eye. Yeah, and it's beautiful.
I think it's been evolving over the years, and I think during the pandemic, I really realized my need for color. And this painting, in fact, was kind of a turning point for me as well, because I always wear black, and sometimes I'll throw like a colored shirt or something over. But that kimono that I'm wearing there, like during the pandemic, I just had to buy something that had color in it. So I bought this kimono online, on the Verge online, right? But I know I'm terrible, right? But when I got it, just, oh my God, the interaction of color on it, it made me want to paint it regardless. So I was thinking, how do I get this into a painting? And it factored in. And then when I started painting that, I realized how much joy the color, it's like food, the color. And so I started amping it up. And then over the years, just trying to, I suppose, initially when I first started painting, not being able to get a handle on color, always being hit and miss and kind of, you know, why can't I recreate these results? And then nerding down into that and going, okay, what are the properties? How do we get consistent results? And then it just becoming my special interest essentially. And now I teach it, you know, but just, it's just so important to me. And then also the abstract part of it is because I'm a bottom-up thinker. I see the detail before I see the whole. So for me, I like, if someone sits in front of me, I'm not necessarily thinking in terms of their shape or silhouette. I'm kind of going straight into a mark on their cheek and the way the light is hitting the corner of their mouth. And I can't help myself. That's where I'm pulled. I have to, it's very effortful for me to come out and see it in a top-down perspective, which is interesting because I did animation in college, and I struggled with life drawing in college because you're thinking in terms of the form being like a box model essentially, you know, like the head and how many, and whereas for me I'm like straight in on a little wrinkle or a little bit of light, because that's how my brain works. So being able to get something to look really abstract up close, and then when you stand back, it making sense, it's like kind of a gestalt kind of theory that just makes my brain, it just makes me really excited, and it's where all the fun is for me. So that's why I do it. I'm not sure if I made any sense in the last 2 minutes there.
No,
look,
you did. You did. I mean, you did, and it's interesting because I think a lot of artists might approach their work with an expectation of what the end piece should look like, which has to come with a lot of pressure. So if you are able to trust your own process and know that eventually you will get to the end piece and know, okay, it's complete, it has to be something that has come through practice and through confidence in your work. Because I know, you know, if people haven't, if they're not familiar with you or your work or other artists and their work, and suddenly there's, you know, you're on the TV, it looks like, oh sure, she could just do that in her sleep, it's just a natural thing. But I know it comes from hours and hours of practice, and you start to, like, you know, muscle memory in your brain on, yes, this is what works, this is how I approach this.
It really does. It takes a long time to find. I mean, people would look at my work now and they'll say that I have a style, you know. And the thing is, if you go after that, like, you can become very stagnant because you're trying to kind of almost create what you've done before. But I suppose if you just, I mean, this sounds so like, I don't know, cliche or something, but like, if you literally follow your authentic path and if you just do things that genuinely excite you, your style will emerge, kind of like the likeness emerges if you're just truthful to each mark. And for me, I do a lot of meditation. I have to, because I'm hyper. So I do a lot of meditation. And for me, it's about, painting is about the process and being in the moment, and each mark and slowing down. I'm always trying to slow down and make each mark meaningful. And then what happens at the end is you have this tapestry of interweaving marks that could only have been made by you, could only have been made because of your mood, experiences, physicality in the moment. And that is your style. And that's beautiful. It's not beautiful though, like the idea that everything that everyone does is uniquely them, you know? And I guess, I mean, I learned on this piece, I didn't know before this because I was trying to be something that I wasn't before this piece. So this piece actually is very, very important to me. Is that when I did this piece for myself, I was like, I'm just going to let myself be too much. I'm going to let myself put everything at the kitchen sink on this. I'm going to let there be a million brush marks. I'm not going to worry about it being overworked or too busy or not cohesive. And what happened when I just let myself go and let myself be and do it, it coalesced eventually, you know?
It just flowed.
This is it, you know?
It's the path of least resistance, isn't it? Like, if you find what works for you and what just sort of naturally flows from you, then it's easier to go with that, as opposed to trying to copy other artists' style or finish a piece that you want to look a certain way, when actually, you know, like you said, your marks are independent and unique to you. So to try and harness that and nurture it.
I think when you're learning to paint, it's really important to copy other artists. I think it's really important to find what you like to look at and what gets you excited. Not what you think other people will buy or what other people like, but find what you like and then copy those artists to learn your craft. And then over time, as you find yourself getting, you know, more interested in certain aspects, like follow that, and let that become it. Ultimately, if you stay on your authentic path, it'll turn into your work. It's inevitable. It's inevitable, really.
Well, I know that. So going back then to having your 4 hours and trying to complete this portrait, how did you feel throughout that process? I mean, it must have been a roller coaster of emotion. And how did you feel your work was coming along?
Well, okay, so I mean, at the start, I was in a pure panic, as we were talking earlier, because I went against all my own usual safeties.
And why was that?
Why
did you do
that? It
was
adrenaline.
Okay.
It was like time clock. Oh, this isn't working.
Right.
And rather than going, this isn't working, breathe, try again. It was like, next, pivot, change, quick, you know. One thing I will say is the fact that I had my colors picked out, my palette picked out, that was hugely beneficial, because I knew I could just rely on that at least. But so there was that initial panic. Then about an hour in, I think I was like, okay, I'm happy with my composition. This is good, because at that point, if you're not happy with your composition, eek, like you're just fighting the whole time. So I was like, okay. And then I think I started working on the first eye, which was, I was like, okay, I'll get the eye worked up. And I was like, this whole portrait's about the eyes. That's important. That second eye, I swear, it did not go in. I mean, on the show, I think they had said 5 minutes, but it was definitely towards the end, though. It was,
wow.
It was like, Sinead, put the eye in. And Stephen Mangan was like, you do know that you have to put the eye. And I was like, I know. And at one point, he'd no ear either. But what I did was, I was like, okay, I'm on TV here. This is not at home where you can throw the eye in and the eye is halfway down the face and you can fix it. So in my head, it was playing like, now that you've left it, they're going to be focusing on you putting that eye in. And the pressure got so bad that I started procrastinating on putting the eye in. So it was a double problem now, you know. And so I was like, okay, you're going to be literally placing this eye and walking away. So I just started working on all the scaffolding that goes around the eye, you know, and really looking very, very deeply with all the words are gone, all the shadows and light around the eye. And I was thinking, okay, and I don't know how magically it came together, but it did.
I would say it's from your true skill of your craft, Sinead. I would say it didn't just appear out of the abyss.
I'd say I was vibrating at such a high. It was like an actual noise coming off me at that point.
Yes.
So you know.
And is there parameters in terms of what you have to have completed at the end of those 4 hours? As in, you need 2 eyes. It needs to be a face.
I mean, no, but I mean, we've all watched the show, right? We all know what the judges are going to say. That's kind of hanging on you, like, oh, if only they had. Or you're also as you get towards the end, like once you get into the second half, you're like, oh, whether I fail or succeed, this is going to be aired. This is going on the telly. So it's like the fear factor goes up, because you could make a complete mess. It's still going to get shown.
And I mean, the pressure of that alone, but you handled it really well. And I think the show did really well in terms of the other artists that were there. There was a very wide variety of artists and their work. Did you, and obviously you are our favourite, and you were also my daughter's favourite, by the way, who was watching it with great excitement. She even had a magical or a musical reaction to you somehow. She did. I'll tell you about that another time.
I want to hear all of my musical reaction. Excellent.
But she, but did you have a sort of a favourite artist, or, you know, how did you feel everyone else?
Well, I had spotted Anna's early on, and like I was like, okay, like she's got this in the bag, because now I know that she was saying she was nervous and stuff, but she just had this very calm presence about her. And having Fleur as your sitter, oh my, like, I mean, I know on the telly and everything, when you see Fleur in person, like her skin is like, it's a different substance. I don't know what's going on. It's just
she does just seem to glow.
It just glows, like light comes off her. And so I was like, oh my God, you know. So I just thought Anna's was stunning, and I'm not just saying it's absolutely deserving winner, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I also loved Leah's, because the way that composition, Leah's was so little, you know, and the composition, and what's it, Badger? Oh my God, I was like, just on its own as a little mini painting was stunning, you know.
It was lovely. And I think they did an edit, like I think they edited out, I'd say, the amount of chaos and comedy that Cat brought on the day.
I was thinking they had Nick Grimshaw last year with the dog. I think a dog would have been more chaotic. The cat did come around a few times, but cats are kind of like, they're quite, they're quite mobile and like flexible. So they don't really kind of cause too much chaos. But yeah, it was walking into our, what do they call it? Yeah, it was walking into our section a good few times to just come and see. I think Richard, because it's Richard's cat too, because Richard and Emma Freud are partners. So
I didn't know that.
So the cat was theirs, essentially, I guess.
Oh, I missed that point completely.
I don't think they said it.
No.
Maybe I don't think they said it on the show. So
well, yeah. Richard seemed like a very generous sitter. I know you could take pictures of him, but having him there to get a sense of him, and I know he picked yours as his favorite piece because I think he saw himself in that picture, and the worry that he said, it sort of represented that bit of worry that he tries to hide. Yeah. How did you feel about that comment?
Oh, I was having all the feels. I really felt it, and it was just so lovely for him to show that vulnerability. I thought, as somebody who's like in the position that he's in, to be able to kind of be still so humble and tapped into your own vulnerability, that I think that's beautiful. And he really was that lovely. When he was there, he came over, he spent loads of time talking to us before and, well, not before, but during the breaks and after, and he was just very kind, and I'm so glad that he felt represented by the picture. And yeah, sitting there, I kept saying like he's like a little boy or something. That's kind of what I kept feeling. Like maybe I'm just feeling maternal because I've got a 5-year-old, but I was just like, he just felt to me like a little boy.
Just that vulnerability. Like he just showed up as his true self on that day, and let people capture him. Was a very brave thing. But I think he did seem like a very gentle, very sensitive character.
He was so lovely.
Yeah,
he really was so lovely. Yeah.
And were you happy then when, I don't know how any artist decides, okay, my piece is finished, but on the day you were told you're done?
I would have liked another hour.
Okay.
Personally. And like when it finished, so I had again in my head trying to be somewhat strategic about it. I was like, okay, Sinead, going into it, when there's half an hour to go, I want you to stand right back. I want you to stop. You can afford to take 2 to 3 minutes to stop and really make some critical decisions. This was the plan. This was the strategy going in, but it just doesn't happen. You're just on fire, and you're like, no, I must paint with every second that I have. And then you end up missing things that you're like, oh, if I just done one brush mark there, it would have just, But overall, I was happy with the result. I just would have liked another, even half an hour to an hour, to just kind of finesse up certain parts of it, the collar on the shirt and things like that. But overall, I was happy enough to say, okay, I got the eyes. That was
well, we thought you did an incredible job, and obviously the judges did as well, to have you in their final 3. And then Richard obviously did, having the piece. But did you just have to walk away? Is that piece now hanging proudly in Richard's home?
It's either hanging in his home or it's still in his car. I don't know, but
just in his car.
He gets to keep it. Yeah.
Good.
And like Emma came around and she said, "Oh, you picked the one I would have picked." So I was delighted with that as well, then, because that was
amazing.
To hear that as well. So
that means a lot. And was there anything else about the process or how you approached it that you could share this morning?
I don't know. We covered so much there. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you've been really generous, even sharing the palette that you used, and it's shocking. It shocks me every time when I hear you talk about colour, how you created what looks like, a palette of a million colours with just 3.
Yeah.
I know that every art supply centre in Ireland now will be sold out of those 3 colours. You should get royalties, Sinead.
I need to get some kind of affiliation going, but yeah, that's the thing.
Sinead's material list, or anyway. But so what's next? I know Portrait Artist, again, it happened for you months and months ago, back in April, earlier in the year, but now that it's aired, now that you've sort of seen it and you're able to to chat about the process, and we've all seen it. What's next? What do you feel bubbling up? I know you do your teaching here, which we're so...
Yes, I'm teaching in Schoolhouse. That will be continuing. And also, just to mention, shameless plug, that you can see this painting this weekend at the Dublin Art Society.
Yes, I was going to mention this. I will see you there.
In Dalkey this weekend, if anyone wants to come down. Yeah, for me, it's what I really, really would love to do, but I have to put a big plan together, is I'd love to have a solo exhibition. And I have ideas in my mind, but I think it's going to be 1 to 2 years in the making. To put it together. So that's kind of where I am going with it, because I have a lot of work I need to get out of my system. And I need to try and hunker down and get that plan coalesced together, and then do that. That will be the goal, really, at the moment.
And I know you do a lot of work with Dublin Art Society. I mean, it's president of?
I'm the president. Yes.
Well, I know we'll be there this evening at the exhibition. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, in case anyone hasn't made their Friday night plans for the weekend?
If anyone's Friday night plans have fallen through, or if you're at a loose end, please pop down to Dalkey Town Hall 6 to 8 for our launch. And it's on all weekends, so you can come down and have a look. There's like 162 paintings, just a variety of different artists. So and this one will be there, so you can scrutinize it if you want to come in and scrutinize it. So that'll be nice to do. So
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there later. Giving you a big hug to say thank you for doing this with us this morning, on top of everything else you have going on.
That musical interaction, I'm really intrigued by, and I'm really interested to hear.
Well, okay, really quickly.
Okay.
But my daughter said that you're her favorite anyway.
What age is she?
She's 9.
Okay.
But yeah, she's 9, but herself and my son watched the whole show with total, like, they were fixated on it. And kids these days,
well,
they're
my
not,
daughter did. My daughter was having a crisis every 5 seconds. She's 5, but like, I was watching the show and she was like, my elastic band broke, and then there was a full-on cry for 15 minutes.
Well, my kids were watching it, and they've met you, I think, throughout just me us working together. But whenever you came on the TV, there was a big roar in the house. But my daughter Matilda said that, Mom, I think Sinead would be my favorite, even if you didn't work with her, because everyone else was like this. Dun, 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 dun. Sinead's like this. Bum, 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 bum. She just saw your energy, I think.
I love
out of the TV.
That.
Yeah.
Oh
I was like, you know what, Matilda, that is Sinead. She has just this, and when she did it, she was like this for everybody else, but for you, she had this big, huge outburst of what you felt like to her. And
so
yes,
cute.
it made my heart burst as well, because I was like, I love Sinead, and this is exactly this. You've captured her well. So I think everyone else felt the same, Sinead. You were an absolute joy to watch. Your work is phenomenal and inspiring, and even just the stories behind it and what you bring out and what you do. More of that, and we will make sure to go to any show you have. The solo exhibition will be something that we will, we'll hold with bated breath to go and see.
I have to hold myself accountable, and I have to do it. It has to
yeah, you've said it now.
Paintings are inside you. If they don't come out, they make you ill.
Yeah. Well, we don't want that to happen, and we will be here to make you accountable and support you all the way. So thank you so much for your time this morning. You're an absolute legend. And thanks to everybody who joined us. I know we've had a really loads of people joining in, and everyone just gushing on the comments on how great you are, how your portrait was their favorite, and a big thanks for sharing the story with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks everyone. Have a lovely Friday, and we'll hopefully see you at the Dublin Art Society later on tonight or over the weekend. All right. Take it easy. Bye. Bye bye.